Greetings, my friends. Welcome back. Take some time to warm up your feet a little bit before we begin standing and moving. I know that the emphasis in this series is upon the neck and the shoulders, but if you've been following us for the past month, then you'll start to understand how the whole body is related. You can roll on a round object, a straight object. Each emphasizes different sections of your foot, different ways to move. Soft objects, hard objects. These are both hard because my feet have gotten so cozy and soft with moving. They just flex easily now, so nothing feels uncomfortable. Even standing on it feels okay. But if your feet are still tender, please choose something soft and squishy, maybe a tennis ball. It can be anything at all, and just begin to create movement, healthy movement and flow through your feet. It makes a tremendous difference all the way up to and including your neck. Aha! And when you're done doing that, and always take your time, let's do some standing. It's a comfortable frozen day up here where I'm at. You might be able to hear the river in the background. This isn't always able to cut out all the sound, so that ambient noise isn't an air conditioner or any other problem. It's actually just the river right outside. It's a very soothing experience even inside the house. Frozen, so there's ice on the trees because we're in the forest. And somehow it makes it especially lovely being inside and warm. And during these wintry times, we want to take extra care, again, with our feet, keeping our feet warm as we walk around, our ankles warm, and of course, our neck and shoulders. But remember that if you're standing on cold, hard ground, for instance, a wooden floor or tile or something, maybe you're standing outside and the cold is seeping in through your shoes into your feet, circulation begins to slow and stop. The muscles contract. You can't soften when your body's hard. Cold makes things contract and get hard. So we want to do the opposite. We want to be warm and soft. That's part of how we will change things in our body. It's okay to occasionally be a little cold, but we want to always be able to warm up again afterward, being able to release those patterns of contraction before they set in. Just in the same way that as we stand here, if we stand and wait and let our body warm and open, over time that becomes how we are through our whole body. But if I'm standing outside all the time, and my body is instead learning contraction and closing and protection, then that's how we become. So choose how you spend your time wisely. Softening your neck and your shoulders. Remember that we are releasing the head upward. The chest, the upper back, the belly and your lower back, all free and soft. Your breath is natural. allowing your tailbone to sink as your lower back opens. Your hips and glutes release. Your thighs are soft, your knees are soft and unlocked. As best you can, releasing your lower legs, and of course, softening your feet. And closing when you're done. Allowing your awareness to accumulate in the middle, softening inside. For this 100-day series, I have been exploring movement to the neck and shoulders through specific practices and techniques, but also we've been exploring the sinew channels in the body according to Chinese medicine, and we can begin to unravel how that relates to the neck and the shoulders in this free movement. But also this is part of a larger educational system, so that as people follow through the snake and turtle system, they learn a lot about Chinese medicine, which is an integral part of Qigong practice and these Taoist meditation methods. And so take the time to learn what I'm teaching as best you can. Just commit them to memory, make them part of your practice, and begin to understand how the whole body relates from top to bottom, left to right. And if you're just coming here, if you're just finding me from around the internet, thank you for joining us. You're jumping right into the middle of a series, and you may prefer to start at the beginning, or at least to watch the introduction first. And so the links are down below. Click back, find them, and then start at the beginning of the practice, work your way forward, and what I'm talking about will make a lot more sense. And for everybody else, if you've begun to understand these sinew channels, and of course feel free to repeat some of those other lessons if they're hard to remember or they didn't quite make sense. Or feel free to reach out and put questions and comments down below. We want to begin to integrate that knowledge a little bit more deeply. And so what I'd like to do is, instead of working on specific sinew channels, since we did the 12 major channels, now what we want to do is pay attention to how, in general, areas of our body interact. And remember that the sinew channels, as opposed to other aspects of the channel system that we explore through Chinese medicine in my other series, like the self-massage series, this tendinomuscular system, this sinew channel system as I'm calling it, we're talking about the ligaments, the tendons, some fascial links, connective tissue, but also just the use of the musculature, the way that the muscles flow and move and interact biomechanically through the body. So these things can be found and felt as we move. They're not just strange ideas. What I'm hoping people will do through their practice, through this very broad range of movement that we engage in this system, is you can begin to feel how these lines move together, how they interact with the rest of the body, how this line has a part that includes here. Why does that function this way? Why does this movement impact what's going on up here? And these are things you can feel just by doing some movement. Usually if I'm teaching high-level athletes, they come and they start to learn with me. Intuitively, they figure out, oh, this is part of this. I was recently training an expert tennis player. And this person, as soon as I was talking about the kinds of twisting relationships through the body, she said, oh yeah, this was related to this, and this is how this works. And as though she had studied Chinese medicine. I said, that's right. Those are the sinew channels. And when those lines of movement and expression are obstructed or in pain or contracted because of cold, for instance, to bring it all back to the feet, that when those are obstructed, they stop functioning. And that affects everything, including the movement in our neck and shoulders. So we have to understand and feel how these things work. You want to understand them from the inside. not just here, but here. And this form is a wonderful way to explore those. So do take the time to understand how your own body functions. We're just giving them names like this muscular channel system, the sinew system. It's really revealing as you come to understand your own body more. And so this time, I'd like to focus on, for instance, the feet. Noticing your feet, the relationship and the connection to the ground, how you are in your feet. Are your feet tightening up? Are your toes tense? Are your feet gripping? Are you leaning somewhat so that your toes are having to push into the ground and your calves are tight? How about, are you leaning back a little bit so that you're always lifting your toes a little bit and trying to counterbalance yourself in some odd way? We want to find out how to settle through our feet. One aspect of our practice much later in this series will be in correcting the alignment of the hips, the knees, the ankles, the feet. For many people, they stand in kind of a collapsed way or in some strange direction. And that will get easier to fix as we work our way down through the body. But we start by just feeling our feet, our connection to the ground. So let's do some circles. The majority of our awareness for this practice is inside, beneath our hands, generating some awareness through the internal part of our body, or at least on the surface if you're not able to feel inside yet. Your breath is easy and comfortable. Both directions. And allow some part of your awareness to be in the relationship between your feet and the ground, the kind of contact you're making with the ground. And let's warm up the back a little bit. Just moving up and down. Especially if you've been getting cold. Maybe it's chilly where you are as well. Take the time to allow the musculature around the back, the glutes, to warm up a little bit. You can soften along the sides if that's important. Be kind to your body. And let's do a little bit of releasing the side of the neck, lengthening, lengthening. Notice that as you release, there's a shifting of the weight of movement through the body. One foot engages the ground differently than the other. Feel what that's like. Are you shifting your weight toward your toes? Are you swaying back into your heel? What is that like? The practice itself will continue to release your neck and your shoulders, but we want to be able to pay attention to improve our self-awareness, our awareness of our body, our proprioception capacity, the ability to feel your own body from the inside is important. And then a little left and right, yin and yang. This time, the weight pours through one leg. One leg is empty and free. The weight pours through the other leg is empty and free. Keep going with this movement back and forth. I think I already showed you this little training toy as an example before, but I'd like to use it again. This is just a tube of liquid with some sparkles and things inside. And you've seen these kind of thing before, where through the medium, through the water in this case, everything is beginning to settle to the bottom. Everything sinks. The clear rises, as the heavy sediment inside, the sparkles, sink down. You can see it slowly building up here as it gathers. And this is like the process that we're doing with this left and right, yin and yang, and really with all of our practices, including that basic standing posture. We make space inside so that everything can sink naturally to the bottom. This heavy part settles, and the light part is clear. And so the clear part rises, the unclear part sinks. And this is a quality in our body that we want to cultivate, our body and our mind. As we let go and pour the weight from side to side, that aspect of us settles, sinking down through into the ground, making the upper part light, but also, in this case, one side light, one side heavy. One side empty, one side full. Getting really good at this quality is very important for our Qigong practice. It's in every movement, and we'll emphasize it more later, but I wanted to pay attention to it because part of what we're releasing too is our feet and our connection to the ground. Eventually, we release the weight through the feet into the ground. But for now, just notice that relationship and that connection to the earth. Very important quality of our practice, even again for releasing the neck and shoulders. So let's combine them now into this left and right, yin and yang. This snake softening its sides. Swaying like a wave all the way up and to the other side. Notice the weight pouring into one foot, being free on the other. And then tapering off. And closing. Few breaths of meditation, your mind settling in the center. And we'll do some releasing through the hips, full circles. Noting the relationship to the feet to the ground. Remember that these sinew channels that I've been talking about the last couple of weeks, they emerge, they begin in a way in the fingertips and in the toes and move up through the body, the rest of the body in connection. And in part, this is a description of a relationship with the world. We're moving, and this movement begins in the feet and comes up through the body, because this is my solid grounding. It's a little more difficult to move like this, floating in space and trying to interact with the world. Both directions. Circling, feeling this engagement travel up and through. And then the larger circles, just like normal. But again, noticing how the relationship, the connection to the ground impacts the rest of the body. As you shift your weight, the weight moves naturally around the feet. You're not trying to keep it in one spot on the feet. And where that weight falls and moves through impacts what's going on up here. If you just had all of the weight on one side of your feet, it would stifle the movement through the rest of your whole body. Everything is related. Both directions. And then releasing the neck, a bit of your upper thoracic spine as well. Full comfortable circles. Again, a good percentage of the awareness is down in your feet. Both directions, taking your time. Softening all the way around your neck. Softening your jaw, your shoulders, your upper back. And then when you're ready, gazing down into the ground between your feet. Softening the back of your neck. And let's make a few of those forward rolling circles with the neck. Allowing your awareness to be down in your feet. How is the connection to the ground moving as the rest of your body moves? Becoming an expert in how your body is moving. Slowly rolling up. Closing when you're ready. Allowing yourself to be free of distraction for just a few breaths. So let's do a little bit of shoulder warm-up for preparation for the snake waving front and back. As usual, that rear shoulder circling, closing, and opening. The weight is pouring between your feet. One side light, one side heavy, just like that left and right yin and yang practice. So here, one side goes heavy, one side is light. One side is heavy, one side is light. And as you do this, noticing your feet. How does the weight move through into the ground? Are you gripping your toes, rocking your weight back and forth? Stay settled. Both directions. Changing sides whenever you're ready. Free and easy movement. Softer is better. Allowing the weight like sparkles to flow down through your body into the ground. Keeping your feet soft and connected to make that connection to the ground possible. Easy. both directions. How are your feet as you soften down and through? And then both directions. Part of my ability here to let go of my shoulders and to soften all the way around is that I have some place to soften down to. If this is rigid and tight, maybe I'm leaning back here, my shoulders cannot release because my body is busy holding itself up. And so I have to have, for instance, my hips and my back below my shoulders in a relatively relaxed position for my shoulders to release. Don't lean back. And then the alternating. So likewise, in the way that I cannot soften my shoulders if there's no space beneath them to relax down onto, if my hips are not aligned, the same is true with my feet. If my ankles are tight, if I'm standing up on my toes in an awkward way, if I'm not able to release my lower legs, maybe my knees are locked, then that tension works its way up and you're not able to let go and let go. So, by softening your feet and making sure that your feet and ankles are in the correct relationship, you have some way to soften through both directions. Closing. Your awareness sinks inside. Probably can't hear it on the mic up here, but there are certain days when I close and settle my awareness here, my belly starts rumbling and making all kinds of noise and shaking like a car engine. It happens less these days than it used to, but just this simple settling inside has a dramatic effect on what's going on inside your body. But you have to take the time to cultivate that kind of release. And that release doesn't just happen here, it has to happen all the way to the end. So pay a little bit of attention in here. So when we're ready, snake, softening front and back like a wave. Shoulders, neck. Again, noticing this relationship between your feet and the ground. If during your waving motion you shift too far forward and your feet are pressed into the ground, your toes have to tighten up, and you're gripping with your toes, either up or down because your movement isn't quite balanced, then that tension naturally flows up the body. It's okay to have the weight moving around your foot, but you want to do it in such a way that you can stay centered and feel soft and relaxed. And then, again closing. So if you noticed all of those relationships we've been developing through the sinew channels, all the way up to the neck and shoulders, then you'll notice that if you are standing in such a way that your toes and your feet are crimped and already blocking movement, then already all of those sinew channels through your body are obstructed and unable to release. So we have to at least have some awareness of what's going on here so that we can begin to develop a more correct alignment. You don't have to get it perfect now. It won't happen for a while. But it won't happen at all if you can't feel what's happening, what's occurring in this relationship and connection. So be patient and take your time. Let's open the neck a little bit in preparation for black snake. Just a few times on either side. Weight pouring. Pours through one leg, one foot pours through the other. Let's also do down and up, just a few times. And then the neck movement, lengthening vertically and horizontally, vertically, horizontally. Now that we're at a month in, feel free to add more of these, maybe 6 or 7 repetitions each side, each direction. As long as it's not adding stiffness or pain, but by now, those postural muscles should be a lot stronger and more used to being challenged. Lengthen outward, softening. And then, as well, turning the head passively with your hands. Notice that as you turn your head to the side, the weight changes through your foot, even if your body isn't trying to change weight. Your whole body is connected. And again, lengthening outward. Palms forward, arms falling gently along the side of the body, so that as they settle along the side seam with your shoulders open. Don't try to pull your shoulders back, but do maintain this sense of lengthening outward. And then again, this time, you should come up the inside. This way, pressing up. And then Gently pressing on top of the head, upward, down, forcing the head to lengthen upward. And then softening down. And then when you're ready, the hands on the back of the head, gently looking down and up and down. You take your time. Don't strain your neck, but do give it a little bit of a challenge in the back. Looking down, opening one last time, and then softening outward. Let's do the left and right softening. Let me know down below in the comments how this feels for you. I'm always curious to know people's experience, especially if you either come from a culture where this is normal, or maybe you come from a culture where you've never moved this way in your life. It's always interesting to hear how this is progressing and evolving for people. And then finally, shaking out from the top down. Closing. Feels good. A few more before we do black snake. Let's do the shoulder, neck and shoulder release, the frozen shoulder movement. Over the top, opening, looking to the side, and then gently lengthening outward. Keep your head turned. The opposite hand comes up and rolls around. Make sure that you're not ducking your head too much or changing the position of your neck. You're just looking from one side to the other as best you can. Shoulder stays soft. Shaking out a little bit. And then one side coming up. The other one pushes down. Lengthening away from each other, directly over the head and below the belly. And then you soften down. Purposefully release your head and neck, your shoulders, your chest, your upper back, your belly, your lower back, your hips, your knees, your feet. And then the other side. As your hand moves up and the other hand presses down, make sure your shoulder opens. Again, noticing that relationship with your feet on the ground. One more time on either side. Hand presses down, the weight drops through your feet into the ground. Waiting until you melt to the side before starting the next one. And then the movement allowing your shoulder and elbow to drop so that as your arm floats up, the thumb moves behind the head and down as you turn your waist. Up alongside the body. You'll notice my hand is behind my head, but I'm not pushing my head forward. I'm also not lifting my shoulder. My arm can move in this position because my shoulder is sinking. The shoulder blade releases down the back. And it's perfectly okay if your arm and shoulder don't quite do that yet. But we do want to be aware of this possible alignment. A lot of our movements, you'll notice, follow this sequence, this shape. So we want to be able to do it evenly without too much effort. And then let's do a bit of black snake. Softening all the way through, down to the ground, through your feet into the ground. Take your time. Notice in each opening, as I do these 3 twists, notice in your own feet, how does the weight transfer through your feet as you make each movement? Your body changes shape. So that means your feet are forced to deal with a slightly different shape. And you want your feet to be soft enough to allow those shapes to pass through and into the ground. One more time on either side. Closing when you're done. Easy. Letting your mind quiet. This deep sense of peace and quiet settling inside. Remember, I'm going relatively quickly through these movements because I'm assuming at this point you know most of these movements, either from my earlier videos that are on YouTube openly teaching the basic movements. There's always more coming out. But also, if you need more instruction, I have many hundreds, possibly thousands by the time you watch this, videos of direct lessons being taught that aren't on YouTube, that are over on my Patreon page. And so you can follow the links down below to my Patreon site. This isn't me trying to sell and push anything. They're over there, and they're behind a $1 or a $5 paywall, I can't remember, that is just to keep the AI from scraping the videos, because they include me talking to other people, and I want to give them that one layer of privacy, even though they're not on camera. And so feel free to find me over there. And again, watch these hundreds of lessons of me teaching these basic movements over and over again to beginners, and it should help you quite a lot find your way through. So let's do a bit of preparation for white snake. As you lift and open, how do your feet interact with the ground? What does it feel like, this movement up and down? Both sides? How is your body responding? Is it opening or closing? Do your feet press, or do they soften? Do they rock? What's going on? Are you able to keep your toes soft? And then, same thing. This is sending a wave of motion, like a shock wave, down to your feet into the ground. How are your feet handling it? Do they tighten up? Do they block the movement? Do they push against it, fighting it? What does it feel like? And then opening, one leg empty, closing, one leg empty. Your foot is soft, your foot is soft. Both sides. Slightly wider stance, lengthening outward. Remember, this includes from the hip through the knee to the ankle to the foot, this kind of lengthening, just like we're doing through our hands. You want a feeling of lengthening and stretching out. And then we close around, maintaining that length, all the way to your feet included. Opening, softening. As I mentioned before, your shoulders won't sink down your back if your lower back is tight. You want your lower back to soften open. Don't allow it to arch. Tailbone sinks gently as you let your lower back open. In the same way, your hips won't relax if your feet are tight and not under your body. So stay soft. Notice the root. Comfortable movements. White snake. Weight pours from one foot to the other. One foot is free, and then the other. Changing. Notice that if you lean back or you do some wrong movement, it forces the weight through your feet in the wrong direction. So by paying attention to your feet, it will tell you what the rest of your body is doing. Just another source of good information. Getting nice and settled, always taking a moment. Take your time to loosen up and settle as much as you need to. And then let's do a little bit of opening and preparation for Golden Snake. Start by softening and opening the shoulder blades, the chest. Elbows coming high. Make sure your shoulders don't lift. They stay soft. Both directions. Notice the weight pouring from one foot to the other, keeping your toes soft, your feet relaxed. Easy. I wanted to spend a little bit more time on this aspect of the series because it has a little bit more engagement through the feet. And maybe by this point, you're feeling more sensitive to what's going on through your feet in the ground. One side then the other, moving together. Feel the weight pouring down through the feet. Weight pouring through one leg and the other. And again. Weight pours through one leg, pours through the other. You take your time. One leg becomes full, one leg becomes empty. And then both sides, both directions. The weight pouring in the direction of the waist turning, opening, closing. Feet are soft enough to be continuously changing shape. And again, maybe paying attention to this shape as I turn my waist. Hands face my navel, hands move toward my back, around. But I want to notice that even in this position, my shoulder isn't pulling back. My shoulder is still here. I'm just turning my waist. And however far my waist turns, I'm not even moving my shoulder at this point. However far my waist turns, that's the distance of this circle. And then I can lengthen around for golden snake. So let's try that on both sides. Just softening around. This hip stays open. If I was to hold onto your hips, just to make certain that people aren't doing this or twisting their knees to get back there. It's not important. Just as far as your waist turns, that's where that movement goes. Let's do some golden snake itself. Again, lengthening out from the hips through the knees to the feet. Feel that relationship to the ground. Keep that length as your hands soften down. Elbows stay forward, don't pull them back. Shoulders are soft. Opening. Continuing to open all the way around. Directly to the side, hip stays released. Rotating your waist, stay soft, continuing to breathe normally. Turn your waist, just like we were practicing, and then around, leading with the hand. Then, just like we practiced, changing sides. Soft, open circles. And then again, now that we've remembered how to do this, pour the weight through one leg, through the foot to the ground, and then to the other. Leave your toes soft. Notice if you're rolling in and out, collapsing your ankles, tightening your feet. Keep the movement round, even in your feet. This will allow even your neck and shoulders to soften more easily. So all of this movement just comes through the middle, softening your neck and shoulders. Easy. Easy. Once more on either side. Turn your waist. Keep your knees and hips safe. Weight sinks through the foot. Your knees are more likely to stay safe if you're aware of the position of the foot, because you can't twist your knees and keep your feet comfortable on the ground. Always take the time to settle before you continue. So now let's do a little bit of that free and spontaneous style movement. Again, if you like, you can begin by swaying side to side, like you're seaweed on the bottom of the ocean, letting the movement travel all the way to the end before it turns around. Your neck and shoulders release. You can try swaying side to side, front to back, this way. Same thing, your hands, your fingers reach the end, and then your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists. Lower back is open. And throughout this movement, paying attention to your feet. There's a theme here you're probably noticing. And now, just spend a moment with these directions, either side to side or front to back, or any other spontaneous direction that feels good. Just for another 30 seconds or so. Noticing as you pour your weight and shift what's happening in your feet. Let your whole body move freely. Let yourself be surprised by the movement. And then when you're ready, opening the sky, closing the earth. Same quality here, by the way, as you close. There's this release. Your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, and your hands naturally fall around the circle. Opening, letting go, fall around the circle. And then all the way around the circle. And in the way that it's possible to have this sort of fluid freedom through the wrists and the hands, it's much easier for us to find there. But the same kind of soft, round fluidity is possible for our feet. And of course, at some point I'll do a 100-day series on the hips, the knees, and the feet to help people open those up. But for now, just for this one class, paying attention to what that's like, preparing ourselves for that process. Both directions. One more time. The weight sinking down and through into your feet, and then closing. And then gentle circles. This in preparation for the turtle drinking chi movement. This is part of the end of that movement, so finding it here can be helpful. And then let's do a bit of sinking. First open along the front, and then slide down the back and the outside, keeping your spine long, your neck long, leading with the hands on the way up. By the way, I just say leading the hands because I don't want people to start pulling with their back. So instead, if your hands start coming up and that lets your hips come forward, that's a better sequence than trying to force up with your neck and shoulders. Just a few times with this. Only extending as far down as feels effortless and comfortable. Stay in that realm of comfort. One more, paying attention again to that relationship with the shifting weight, the movement down, and your feet. I'm actually moving my hands to the bottom of my feet here, and then coming up. And then let's go ahead and do the turtle drinking chi movement. Softening down, lengthening your hips backward, lengthening your spine, sitting slightly, and then opening the back of the spine. Tailbone sinks, head drops. Gently extending, and then, again, like we practiced, leading with the nose. Opening along the front of the body, softening down. And as we've been practicing, paying attention to the feet. Drop the weight down through the feet into the ground. Don't hang on to your feet. And then as you roll upward, notice if you want to push your toes into the ground or tighten up, and instead keep your feet soft. One more. Closing. And when you're ready, opening, lengthening, softening your shoulders, the sides of your neck, lengthening upward, crown of the head floats up, soften your wrists, and then sinking down through the body, letting go of your neck and shoulders, your chest and upper back, your belly, your lower back, your hips, your glutes, softening down, your thighs, your knees, down to the ground, to the feet. Even if you can't reach very far, that's okay. And then gently, as though you are gathering up the earth, pulling it up through your legs, all the way up to your lower back, softening, letting go, waiting until you melt before continuing. So as you lengthen upward through the top of the head and the hands, it's as though you're lengthening your whole body. So your hands are pushing up and your feet are pushing down because there's this extension through the body, but not because you press hard. So in the same way that I want my hands to be soft so that I can lengthen, I want my feet to be soft so they can also open and lengthen. This will help to reshape the feet and the ankles. Softening through. Everything releases down through the feet into the ground, the soft feet. Gathering up through the soft feet. Awareness to the lower back and then forward. Let's do one more. Keeping your feet soft. Closing when you're done. Everything settles. Your mind grows quiet, just for a moment. Feeling inside. Eventually, toward the end of all of these practice series that I'm creating, in the way that we've become aware of the hands and the various sinew channels, and now we're becoming very aware of the feet and their relationship to the ground, eventually we'll want to become aware of the space inside the belly, the space between the navel and the spine. It's a very important space called the middle dantian in this system. And for most people, this is an invisible space. There's no cultivation here. Their mind does not go here. Their breath does not go here. There's no movement here. And so very slowly we constantly come back and return, slowly building a deeper relationship, gathering qi in this space. It makes a really big difference. So that by the time we get through the series and we begin to cultivate here, there's some life here, there's some awareness, so we're not starting from zero. So you always want to be closing and settling. There's a reason for it. Both the health of the moment, but also this long-term goal of developing Qigong proficiency. Eventually, this is key. It's vital. It's the most essential section of the body. But we have to work our way there. And then we work our way from there out. It's quite fun, but takes time. So we're investing here. Put your qi here, saving it in the bank. And then let's do some swings. Giant snake shakes its tail. The weight pouring through one foot, the weight pouring through the other. Don't twist your knees. Notice that if you twist your knees and twist your hips, that it throws the weight across your feet in a weird angle. So be careful. Find a way to move more naturally. The weight drops through the center of the foot. into the ground. Letting go. And then one hand slapping the top of the shoulder, the other hitting the outside of the glute here. 1 and 2. Trying not to hit my microphone. And then returning. Loosening up. So each of these lessons that we're giving, this is slowly building toward a larger capacity. We have to become aware of the body before we can do anything with it. And we're so disconnected from our bodies and our minds and our breath and how we feel that we slowly develop that relationship. We slowly build chi in these capacities. This is what we're talking about. And it heals our mind, it heals our emotions, it heals our body, but also it slowly develops the ability to do more interesting practices in Qigong. But it's a piece at a time. So we're taking it in this very orderly fashion, because that's how my mind works. And we slowly settle, creating something a little bit better, transforming ourselves a day at a time. Softening into basic posture again, the weight pouring down through your feet into the ground. Allowing your awareness again to soak into the neck and shoulders, where we've been focusing. This whole form is for the neck and shoulder release. All the way through the sinews, the muscles, the bone. Through the whole body then, but again, especially the feet. Noticing the feet opening and spreading as you stand and practice. They may even be slightly achy as they are asked to change shape. Maybe they've been enclosed in tight shoes for too long. If I may make the plea to you to wear wide toe shoe boxes, don't make your feet squeeze into these tight shoes. Don't wear high heels or things that pitch you forward into your body. If you need orthotics in order to help your feet and ankles feel straight to keep your knees from collapsing, do whatever you have to do, but do keep your feet warm, open, and comfortable so that over the time, and it takes years sometimes, your feet will slowly spread open if they've been cramped like this. Please do take care of your feet. Just this next year, maybe, decide that you're only going to have warm feet. Decide that you're only going to wear comfortable shoes if that's possible for you. If you're a dancer or something, maybe you're forced to wear uncomfortable shoes. But as soon as you can, take your shoes off, get your feet warm, give yourself a foot massage, roll your feet on one of these balls, and let everything open and soften again. I beg you to be gentle with your feet and your toes. Restore some natural shape to your feet. You want your toes and the ends of your feet to be wider than your heels. Everything opens up, flowers out, just the way your hands like this. If your hands were shaped like this all the time, this would be considered a problem. But instead they open this way. You want your feet to have this kind of shape, this open expression through the feet. Slowly healing that relationship with the ground. And again, it takes time. It takes months or years. So do put some time into it. Get new shoes, better shoes. Buy some feet massaging devices. Make sure you get warm socks. Maybe a hot pad to stand on if your feet get cold easily. Take the time to heal them, because by the time we get to working with the feet more actively, I want your feet to not be stiff and hard and painful all the time. It takes time. So this is just my introductory discussion. We will be working with them more actively. I highly recommend the self-massage series, working on that portion of the lower legs as well. Do whatever you can to heal your feet, because they will become foundational. Thank you all very much. For those of you who remember, please do include those foot exercises that I've talked about in earlier classes. Rotating, opening, closing, as though you're grabbing a towel on the ground, moving your feet in all these directions, rubbing them on your other feet if you need to. Get as much life in your feet as you can, especially before you get out of bed in the morning, or maybe before you go to bed at night. But make it an active part of your life, especially if your feet start to cramp or feel sore when it's happening because there's no blood flow there. We want to start strengthening our feet and making them an active part of our world rather than just dead floppy things on the ends of our feet. Again, put the time in before we start to cultivate that with our Qigong practice as part of this longer arc of healing and developing Qigong skill. Because we want to eventually incorporate our feet to make them an active part of our life so that we're healthy and free in our body. But first we have to develop the most basic levels of skill. That starts now. Pay attention, make it an active part of your life. You'll be very happy that you did. See you tomorrow.